this capacity that is very powerful. It's a superpower. You have a superpower called frame switching. I hereby give you this superpower. You can now fly, or it doesn't come with a cape or anything. But seriously, it's frame switching.
So I'm a perfect person for the cannabis industry.
Exactly. That's why that's why you are in that business, because you are going to be able to, and especially as it evolves, as it transitions through this phase, very difficult phase, with getting legalized in all different states. There's nobody better to be part of this industry than people who can think at different levels. So you have a very different order of thinking, and you're unconscious of it. It just became part of it. But if you recognize it and you pay attention to it and you become intentional about it, you can actually almost like get a lot more mileage out of it. And you could put yourself in situations where that is the thing. And that's the problem, is that you have these. We all have these superpowers, but we're in the wrong place. So that we're saying, why is it that nobody is seeing all my talent? It's because you just need to switch. Don't change who you are. Just change your audience. And then you're going to find that there's a lot of people that will see you as, my God, you're a rock star. So you are a rock star in your industry. Yes.
I have a question actually based on Jacqueline's discussion about, like pointing someone out as unique might not be a good thing. So I guess would the recommendation be, do you shy away from these two type of columns, or do you try to blend them? So would it be better to say, like, this person did something very unique, which helped the team adjust the situation? That's the secret. Is it better?
That's the secret, is to, so the kind of leadership that you need to develop is a hybrid of these two, where naturally and without effort, like effortlessly, you're able to read the room and determine, okay, here's how I'm going to shape this message. It's going to come out, and it's going to hit these different types of thinking. And then that's what makes you powerful, is that you're saying the same thing, you're just using different way, but you're then reaching different people, and you're registering with different people, and people are saying, she is so cool. I love working with her. It's because you have given them a sense that you value who they are, to the point where you learned what will work for them, and you packaged it. And they may not know it immediately, but they will know, they will notice, and that will differentiate you. So the key, and I'm glad that you mentioned that, because the key now is for you to know these two thought systems exist. Your mission is to develop a way, is to basically continue to work on your leadership style, so that you create this way that can speak to the difference. If you can speak to the different minds here, to different brains, to different school of thoughts, or different systems of thought, that would make you very powerful, very effective. You can enter a room, there's a lot of diversity, but by the time you walk out, an agreement has already been made, and you go like, okay, I could get it done, right? You were going to say something. Or is it just, okay. Jacqueline, you were going to say something.
Yeah, you were going to say, do you want to get that? I lost it. You'll find it. You just have to put your head back in the same position.
Next time, guys, write your idea down, because in case I don't get to you quickly, write some trigger words so that you can, because I don't want to lose those.
So based on your name is Carly's remark, one thing I discovered working with, I went into coach teams recently, and I found that a lot of the American leads were actually from Eastern Washington, and they tended to be very gung-ho and very strong-voiced and very gung-ho. And sometimes they would talk straight through people, and I know that I have lots of friends from Eastern Washington, accidentally, Carmen, I'm sure. And as a result, a lot of the people we're working with who are Indian didn't get a look in edgeways. And what I found in retrospectives was that I would say somebody's name, and I'd say, and didn't you find also getting somebody else to approve on the team, who's from an interdependent culture, to help you approve, validate, amplify the solutions provided by somebody doesn't want to be seen to stand out too much is also very good too.
Excellent.
So that everybody, so you're constantly inviting collaboration
Excellent.
into the discussion, whether you're finding a solution or advocating kudos or whatever.
Excellent, excellent. Those are excellent points. So, excellent. Okay, so we talked about the self, and I want to add one more layer, two more layers, but there's another layer. So we talked about how culture shapes the definition of what the self is, a person is, but also culture helps us organize as a group, and it gives us some rules of how we're supposed to coordinate actions with others where there needs to be some kind of social order. Because remember, throughout our history as a species, if we did not organize well, and if we did not have an organization where there's a hierarchy and we know who to go to when we need to go hunting, who's going to organize it, and who is going to eat first the best pieces of the meat versus the other, there's a pecking order. That stays with us. That's why we have hierarchy today. But how independent and interdependence perceive hierarchy is very different. We must understand it because that is a dimension that affects behavior. So, flexible hierarchy. In independent cultures, there's a flexible hierarchy. This means that to achieve, to basically achieve prominence, you just have to kind of work hard. You have to learn, develop skills. Tends to be where, if everything else is equal and under normal circumstances, you get rewarded for all that hard work and innovation, and that's how you rise. If you notice about your own career, that's kind of the normal. You may be working in organizations where that doesn't happen, but which is true, it exists. But in general, independent cultures say everybody is equal, everybody is separate and individual, but we all have similar opportunities to basically get promoted within our hierarchy and gain prominence. So status gets achieved. There's assumption of equality, but in cultures such as interdependent, if you have more people that you need organized to coordinate actions and coordinate their needs and so on, then the hierarchy becomes something that, to gain status, there are other things that will allow you to gain that status. It could be just by your birth name. It could be just you're born into a certain name, and that automatically becomes, like the Kennedys, for example, or the Clintons, or, just by that name, it gives you access. And that's what happens in interdependent culture. It tends to be more stable. It starts at the home. It starts at the family. It starts at the pecking order from the father, the oldest son, the mother, the sisters, and so on. So that's how you get groomed into that hierarchy. You get into the school system, and now you learn how to treat your teacher as somebody who is higher in that hierarchy. You also are taught about, for example, where does knowledge come from? So your teacher in school, you learn to obey that teacher. You learn to treat them with respect and regard, because then that's where the knowledge comes from. You see, in the school systems here, knowledge exists in the mind of that teacher. And the teacher's role is to impart it on the children. Well, in these cultures here, the knowledge already exists out there. It could actually already exist in the brain of the student. The teacher is just facilitator. They facilitate the children to acquire that knowledge that already exists, not in the head of the teacher. So that creates, all of this is consistent and aligned together to show that it is very difficult for people to navigate the hierarchy. They have to kind of, it's either they're born into their kind of names, or you gain it when you gain it with the seniority. You also may gain it by your connections, by the people that you know, the people that your family knows, and then so you gain that status. So here you achieve it. Here you're endowed. You get endowed that status. This means you also have to learn how to treat people that are above you with respect. So you have a respect for status, for rank in the way you talk to people, the way you even address them. You also are you're trained on how to follow chains of commands. So for example, in your case, I'll let you speak to it. Go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to ask a question in regards to this type of a culture. One of the kind of elephants in the room is gender bias, right?
Yeah.
Because automatically by being a man, you have more status than a woman.
Yes, and that's kind of.
What is your experience in addressing that?
Yeah, and that exists. The way that I look at it is that it's like gravity, that you have to recognize it, and you have to work around it and figure out how, in each situation, how to address it. And unfortunately, we don't have time to discuss a lot of the different ways. But what's important is to know that that is a fact here. And when you're coming from an independent culture, you have some expectations as well as you have some moral code. And you may get into a clash where now this is where you may disrespect people because, or not disrespect, but you may lose respect for people by the way they treat their female employees and so on. And so the way that I say it is that understand that that's where it's coming from. Understand that that's the why. How you address it, that's beyond the scope of this class. I'm not trying to avoid the topic, but it's a very big topic, and it has a lot of ethical decisions to make. Do you want to do business with a company that doesn't treat women as equal, and so on? And those are decisions that like I said, I'm not trying to avoid the topic, but that's a huge topic, and it's a very important topic. These cultures are changing, of course, I'm generalizing, but every once in a while, you have to pay attention if there is a dynamic, and you need to address the situation so that you figure out what is going to be the right thing to do in that situation. Any thoughts, any ideas, any response to this one, because it's to this question? Okay, so what you will find is that people will defer authority to authority figures. They will expect and accept status symbols. So your example where you guys were working with people from interdependent culture, I assume, and you did not get information about that there was a problem with the timeline, there was a problem with the deliverables, is because there was one of my hunch is there's an existing structure that controlled that information and the flow of information to you, that those employees that you would normally get that information from if they were here in the United States or they were in a flexible hierarchy, they would be committing career suicide if they have communicated to you that level of difficulty. That should have come to you through a different channels, through a different way, but you're not going to get that information directly, period. So that's the kind of why I put it as a second variable, because that's where it comes in. Because you would think, interdependent cultures, you should be able to say, hey, to build relationships, the flow of information should have been there because that's what creates the relationships and so on, until hierarchy, status, authority comes into play. The other thing that I mentioned to Dennis during our break is that those relationships and interdependence and interconnection, that's reserved for the in-group. That doesn't mean that this exists and is abundance for everybody. No, it means that you have to understand that the more interdependent, the more that system is going to remember the solid line. So when you were talking to that group in the interdependent culture, they were not considering you to be part of the in-group, even though the relationship in the company. So you're not going to get, you're not going to get that information because you're an outsider, you're an out-group, you're on the outside. And they have to, and if that information is important to you, it has to come through a channel of, a chain of command so that it's done properly, so that it doesn't disturb the harmony within that group. Because if somebody came out of line and went rogue, they would have disturbed a structure that has ensured the success of that company, of that group. That's how they were successful, is their interdependence. Does it make sense? Anybody wants to add something or any thoughts? Does that?
project manager, I saw what her billable rate